and this is Open Canvas on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and if you're not in the chat room, you're missing half the show. How you doing this evening, Mark?
Oh, just fine.
Just fine? You ought to be doing great. It's Monday night.
Oh, yeah, I have to have a fire in the fireplace to keep the house warm. I'm not ready for winter yet.
Oh, it was 80 degrees today here.
After the show, I'll put my shoes on and start making my way down there. I'm not looking forward to this polar vortex we're talking about later this week.
I've heard it's not as bad as what they were predicting it to be.
Now, maybe the chemtrails will lessen the severity of it.
It's possible.
Okay. Well,
we got a good show tonight, don't we?
Oh, yes. I think we're have a informative discussion and get some updates of what's going on with the all the fracking in eastern Ohio. And our guest is Ed Hashbarger from, he was a guest about this time last year, I think. And he's a retired police officer and Marine, and he wants to just give us some updates. And Ed, how are you?
Not bad. How are you guys doing?
Oh, everything's going well, and it sounds like about 10, 14 days ago, you had a frack pad accident in not too far from your house. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, they had a valve busted at a drill site here in Jefferson County. It was in Cross Creek. And they ended up having to order an evacuation of a 2-mile radius of the drill pad. 2-mile radius is the crow flies. A lot of people think 2 miles, you need to drive up the road on a road, 2 miles. That's not that far. But when you go 2 miles as the crow flies, that covers a huge area. So, we had a scare here. It happened about, I think it was like around 6 o'clock in the evening. And it got our local sheriff's department scrambling, along with the various volunteer fire departments, as well as the EMA director, getting them out, and they're trying to get people out of their homes. Of course, as the evening progressed and they got more information, they were able to shorten the evacuation zone by 1 mile, so they did a 1-mile radius. And these are one of the things that my organization, the Jefferson County Citizens for Environmental Truth, have been trying to get out to the people. When you're dealing with gas drilling, you're dealing with these volatile gases deep in the earth as they come up. Faulty equipment or cutting corners, whether it's through subcontractors or you're ordering parts that might be from China, not made maybe in the United States or Mexico, and they're not held up to the same standards that we have here. Accidents happen. These things occur. And, I think our politicians, local politicians, need to get on the ball here and quit looking at the big red apple as being the trophy on with all the money coming in from the oil and gas industry. They need to really start focusing on these what ifs. And, that our organization, along with other environmental organizations throughout the state of Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, we've been trying to drum that home. And,
now, when they asked y'all to evacuate, what is it, the chemicals that are actually involved? Is it an aerosol that'll mess up your lungs, or is it something that'll burn you, or?
Well, it was actually, from how I understand it, of course, we didn't have to evacuate. We weren't, I was a good distance off from this particular drill site. But this was a well that was producing, so it was producing the various gases, wet, dry gases, butane, methane, so on and so forth, methane. So these gases, I guess from what I understand, a valve got damaged and it just started spewing out gas. Kind of like, I guess the best way to describe it is maybe taking your propane tank, turning the knob all the way open, and then go to the valve and letting the gas just rush out. It would be in the same capacity.
It sounds extremely dangerous.
Well, you know, I don't have the exact, how do I want to say it? The industry is never going to come out and tell you exactly what happened. But in the Marine Corps, we call it scuttlebutt, rumor. Rumor that has a reliable source. And in this case here, the rumors and the scuttlebutt that I was getting was that the part of the valve that broke was definitely something that was fixable. But if it happened any lower, then we could have been looking at a serious catastrophe here, especially if that gas ignited. Whew, it could have taken out vast areas. I mean, up to the 2-mile radius.
Doesn't some of these fracking pads actually have ignited gas up at an event up top?
Well, they do when they do burn off, and all the companies.
So this thing could have literally exploded then.
Well, I guess when you look at burn off, these are controlled burns. They're burning off the excess gases from the actual drill pad. So this is a controlled burn. It would be kind of like, for example, taking your propane tank, and I have what's called a dragon wand. And it's on farms, we use it to do weed killing along the fence line. If you're somebody like myself who don't want to spray Roundup or pesticide or Roundup or any type of weed killer in your yard or along your fence line, use this it's called a dragon wand. And it's a wand, and it's kind of like almost like a torch at the end of like a soldering gun, but it puts out a really big flame. And this works on the same principle, just way smaller version of it. The propane tank works on that smaller version of what they do at a drill pad, but they're burning off the gases, those extra gases, and instead of emitting them into the environment, they're burning them off. And everything that I've read and seen about that, it's perfectly safe.
Well, until something like that happens.
Well, until something severe happens. And see,
I'm not making light of this now.
No. And see, this is like with our organization. This is what we've attended county commissioner meetings and trustee meetings, and we're trying to bring this to the attention of our politicians. That when businesses come in to do business in an area, you want them to come in with the best trained people as possible. You want them to have the best equipment, the latest technology as possible, and you want these safety procedures put in place. But like any other business, if they're trying to cut corners because they're trying to save a few bucks because they want to show a larger end for their investors on the other end, they cut corners and they may buy a cheaper product. Or they may hire cheaper labor or subcontractors that come in that aren't up to par. And this is where the accidents occur. And, and these things do happen. And I just think that, our politicians need to start getting honest, and they need to come out and say, look, these type of things happen, and this is what we plan on doing. We're going to do this, and this. And we're going to hold these industries accountable to make sure that they hold at these standards. And that's what needs to be done here.
So, Ed, when this valve was sheared off, did the drilling company stop at Lowe's or one of these gas supply stores, pick up a replacement valve, couple bolts?
I'll give the industry credit where credit's due. They have what's called it's a crack response team that comes in, and they fly them in from Texas, And they come in, and these people can get into these drill sites when they have an accident like this, when gas is leaking, or if they've had an explosion or whatever. This team is specially trained. They fly them in Texas. They come in and they get right on the pad and they get to work and get this stuff taken care of. Usually they bring in the parts that's needed. I am sure through some type of whether it's through cameras that they have on site or maybe boots on the ground or working boots on the ground with eye visuals on what's going on. The foremen or whoever get back and say, look, this is what's busted, this is what we need, and they come in with the part. These parts that bust, I'm sure they don't carry them locally here now.
Okay, so there wasn't a local response team to fix it. They had to fly them from Houston, Texas.
Yeah, they flew them in, and this is how I'm understanding it, and this is also what was explained to our organization over a year ago, that any time that there's an accident that occurs on the pad, these companies have a response team, and they're kind of like it would be kind of like our special forces, like SEAL Team 6 or the Delta Force. These guys come in, and that's their job, is to quelch these things that go on. Matter of fact, it's probably something very similar that was used over in Iraq when the oil fields were set on fire. They sent these crack teams in to go ahead and contain these burns and cap them until they can fix them. So that's kind of what happened here. I don't know all the particulars on it. I've only gotten what has been kind of leaked out to everybody. But again, it goes back to what, our organization along with others are saying. These things can happen and they will happen. And I strongly believe that these companies need to really have in-depth training for, if you're going to have, and I'm going to use as an example, like in Carroll County here in Ohio. In some places, they got a pad every mile. Every mile, there's a drill pad. So, to me, I think it would be better, kind of like, this is from the military mind of me going here, when we go into a country like Afghanistan, we just don't fly people in every day from Germany or, maybe Egypt or Israel. We don't fly them in every day to Afghanistan. We go in, we set up bases. We set up bases in various parts of the country, so we have a presence there. I think what the gas companies need to do is create that type of presence in places that you're doing a lot of producing or a lot of drilling, and you got these pads here. They should have crack teams right there available that can respond when the situation happens, instead of having to wait a whole day or wait 12 hours or 48 hours to get a response team in.
Did any of the Jefferson County Health Board people, local doctors, make any kind of official response about, if you had any lung irritation, it will clear up on its own within 24 hours? Something like that.
I can honestly say I didn't hear anything in reference to that or regarding that. I can say that our sheriff here in Jefferson County responded quickly. As we were listening to the scanners, you're kind of caught off guard here. And it's not, not our sheriff that was kind of caught off guard. It was the idea of not having the, I guess, I'm trying to give you yourselves and the listeners there a comparison to what it would be like in reference to, I don't want to say, if you have a house fire, you get the fire department that responds, maybe your local police department responds to help direct the traffic, and maybe a couple more engines show up from a couple different departments there to help out. But when you're dealing with a fire such as that you have at a drill site, and a one that can literally explode, when you think about gases, we're talking about explosions, we're talking about massive fire, so we're very lucky that we didn't have that. you have a response, I guess, in this capacity. They're showing up to a fire, and really, you have the Chicago fire going on here, like the big fire that happened in Chicago, or out in I think it was in San Francisco when San Francisco burnt. You had a whole city that just about burned down. What was it, back in the early 1900s when they had that big fire?
Right.
I guess in the same sense, when you're responding to a drill site fire or a gas leak like that, you're evacuating people for 2 miles, 2 air miles. And I encourage people to get out, get your maps out. If you got a county map or a state map, and you get the bar graph there for the measurement, and just go measure 2 miles out. That's a big area as a crow flies. Big area.
Especially if it's near a big city.
Well, see, and that's one of the other things we discussed. We've kind of explained to our politicians in the past. Could you imagine if this took place, especially if you look at Texas? Texas has got drill pads in the middle of subdivisions, in the middle of people's towns. And for example, Mark, you live in Wheeling, up in the Ogleby area, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, 2 miles, take anywhere there and circle out 2 miles, circled out from the one point. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people. And, that can overwhelm any fire department and police department when you don't have the manpower to evacuate that many people. Now you're scrambling on getting people together. I applaud our first responders, our sheriff, for the job that they did. They did a hell of a job. They were there from the time they got the word until the very end, and they did an outstanding job. But they just didn't have enough manpower. They didn't have enough manpower to cover everything that needed to be covered.
So do you think that some of the local government agencies are going to learn from this, or is it just going to be more of this, status quo? We just really don't want to interfere with our cash cow.
Well, I do believe, and I mean, I can speak with pretty good confidence. Knowing our sheriff here in Jefferson County, he's going to be on it. He's probably already working on something. The very next day after this happened. It's kind of like a football team. You go into a game and you get your pants whooped. The coach now comes back with a better game plan, and I think in this situation here, our sheriff is probably already looking at the various situations and thinking how he can make it better. But again, like I said, I think they did a great job of responding on this situation here. But it's sad that, in the same sense, that our politicians didn't heed the warning and really come back to the oil and gas industry and hold their feet to the fire and say, hey, look, you're putting all these pads in here. Wouldn't it be prudent to create a response team right here? Even if you have to take locals and get them on a payroll and teach them what they need to learn, turn them into that special forces group that you need right here, and then you have one to respond instead of waiting for them to fly out of Texas.
You would think as much as this, that there is in the mid northeast there, they would already have a team in this particular area. I'm surprised that they have to go all the way to Texas.
Well, it does surprise me, and it kind of goes back, and I know I keep referring to being a military man. I keep referring back to the military. That's why, and I'll use the Navy SEALs as an example. We just don't have one Navy SEAL group like SEAL Team 6. You have SEAL Team 7, SEAL Team 5, SEAL Team 4. You have all these different ones. Then you have the Delta Force and the Green Beret and the Marine Recon. So you have all these specialty units that kind of do something they all do about the same thing, but you can pick and choose, or what you need to send them to a location, or they may already be staged in that area, ready to respond. And I just feel in my heart, and with all the data and everything I looked at, I just think that it would be prudent to have teams like that set up in this area here.
Sound like somebody out there wants to be an entrepreneur could really start a profitable business.
Well, I mean, again, I guess it goes back to like with our local colleges and stuff. They're talking, they've already started classes on teaching people how to work at drill sites and get on rigs and work at the rigs. And being an environmentalist, I mean, I'm a conservative Republican, but I'm an environmentalist. What a combination there, I guess. But the way I look at it is, if you're going to be here drilling in the earth, I want somebody that's on that drill pad that's been drilling in the earth for 25 years. I don't want somebody who graduates from a local college because they've taken an 8-week course or a 3-month course, and now you're throwing them on a drill pad. Because to me, the experience is not there.
And you don't even do that in a McDonald's.
What's that?
You don't even do that in a McDonald's.
Exactly. So I guess, if I'm going to hire a plumber in my house to come and do some plumbing work or electrical work, I'm getting in the phone book and I'm looking for those people that's got 25, 30 years experience, that's got all the credentials, that's been there and done that, and that's the person I want in my home doing the work. I guess it's the same thing. If you're going to have these people on the drill pad, I want these people that have that experience of drilling. But when it comes to hiring a crack team coming in, you need to pull people from here that have experience. We got a lot of well qualified firefighters, first responders that you can probably take to Texas, run them through the courses that they need to run through down there, teach them what they need to teach them, get them on those pads down there, let them learn how to squelch these pad fires or gas leaking situations, and then deploy them out. Give them the experience from those leathernecks, or roughnecks, I should say, that work on these pads, know what they're doing. Get them underneath those people. Don't send them off to a school at a community college where they're going to get a couple weeks course and say, okay, you're good to go.
Right. I fully agree with that.
Go ahead, Thomas.
I just want to explain something to the listeners. Fracking isn't something that's new. It's been going on since the 1800s, but it's the type of fracking that has suddenly changed. The new technology is extremely dangerous, and it pollutes the environment, period.
No, I agree. I agree.
There's no doubt in it.
Exactly. And I think I had this conversation with you guys a year ago. The problem is when these companies come into an area like the Ohio Valley here, we sit on a fault line. And I've talked to geologists at Youngstown and Ohio State, and they've all explained to me that we sit on a fault line. And when you drill down into the earth like they do, and in many cases, if you're drilling down and they case a well like it's supposed to be cased below your water table, and they do everything right, and they drill out, the chances of that fracking fluid making its way back up into the aquifer system is almost zero, okay? But the problem is when you start fracking in a place that you have fault lines, and fault lines run miles deep, and they can run all the way to the surface, you frack with all those chemicals. There's approximately 50,000 gallons of chemicals to the anywhere from 3 to 5 billion gallons or 3 to 5 million gallons of water they used to inject each hole. So when you mix those chemicals in, and it's down in that earth a mile deep, and you're injecting it in there, and it's fracturing the explosions are going off, and it's fracturing the shell rock, and they're pumping those chemicals with that water down in there and the silica sand to hold those cracks open so they can extract the gas. The problem is if it makes its way to a fault line and those fault lines run to the surface, you're going to have water contamination.
That's a problem we need to consider since the fracking is going to be going under the Ohio River now.
Yeah, I would have serious concerns over that. I mean, I'm not a geologist. I'm a retired cop and a Marine Corps veteran, and I try to go out and gather as much information. I guess it's the law enforcement in me that I go out. I don't take people's word for it. I go out and investigate it myself, gather all the facts, lay it all out in front of me, and I look at it in black and white here, or in some cases color, depending on how you're looking at it. As you're going down through and you're looking at all the information and you start bringing it all together, you start looking at concerns. And, like, for example, I'm going to use an example. I had a geologist that was out here, a geologist and a biologist that was out at my house about 6 months ago. And what we did was we checked out the creeks that I have on my property, because one of them is spring fed. Well, two of them is spring fed, and one of them is a main creek that gets contributed, that have small creeks feeding into it, which makes it a larger creek that runs down. So we had the water tested to make sure that the chemical makeup was good within the water, the pH, all that stuff. We had everything checked. Everything turned out gold, and that's why I got great crawdads in there, and minnows, and turtles, and all that stuff in there, frogs, the whole 9 yards. And they explained to me that when you have a creek, a heavy creek that runs like this, there's actually another creek below it that runs through the rock underneath of it, or through the shell rock that's underneath it. So, a couple feet deep, you got that. And I was told the same thing, that like the Ohio River, it's kind of the same thing. You got the river, and then you got another river that runs under the river. So I legitimately have concerns of fracking fluid, especially if you're drilling under, or say you're running a pipeline under. Now, we had an incident here not too long ago. I went out and collected the samples where they were drilling underneath of a bridge, a railroad track, and they were running so they could run pipe to transport gas. Now, keep in mind, they're using drill mud to lubricate the bed as they're going down through. As they did this, they were pumping this drill mud in, and it collapsed. It made its way into a person's drinking water and shifted their whole house off this foundation. So we went out and collected. I went out and did the collecting of the drill mud and looked at all the damage that occurred. And a lot of people think, that there's only damages, property damage that occurs from fracking. There's other damages that occur from these pipeline issues that they're running, like these poor people here that had their house completely moved off its foundation. And that just happened right out the road. We have other people that, because of during the drilling process, they lost their water altogether. Their well water just stopped flowing. So, there's more at risk than other than just getting chemicals in your drinking water. You have these situations where, as they're drilling down, they can hit the same vein that happens to be feeding your well, and they can sever that vein, and now the water that's coming to your well is no longer coming there anymore, and you got a dry well.
So, Ed, with what you're describing and the accident at Wintersville, the response team has to fly overnight. I would think all that stuff has been worked out since fracking has been around for a long time, like Thomas said. They say we've been doing this for 70 years.
Yeah, but it's a different type of fracking than it is today, Mark. That's my whole point. The technology is completely changed, and we no longer just frack straight down.
Yeah, well, see, when they did that straight down issue, I was talking to a gentleman. The guy was in his, I think he was like 85 years old, I think he was telling me. 80, 85, maybe even 95, I don't know, somewhere right in that area there. And he used to drill here in Ohio vertical wells. And he said it was almost in the same, under the same principle as it was when they drill a water well. And when I had my house done here, I got to watch them drill my well for my home. And they're drilling down as they're going down into the earth, and they're hitting where spring water, where water is coming through the ground there. You can see the mud come up. But when they drill down like that, and then they force pressure down inside of there, and you can watch the water gush up, like that I had at my place here. It's almost the same principle when they're drilling there. When they're drilling straight down, they didn't use all those chemicals like they're using today. And the reason that they got to use all the chemicals today, and Professor Gorby explained that in detail a while back. Chemicals are being used now because of the microbes. God, no, I've lost my train of thought there.
Like the bacteria.
The bacteria and the microbes that are deep in the earth cause decay on the piping and the equipment. So the chemicals that they use keep these microbes at bay. And that's why, because they're so deep in the earth. Where before, when they were just doing vertical, they weren't going that deep. I mean, they were, but they weren't going as deep as we are today, 1 mile, 2 miles down in some cases. And you're going 1 mile, 2 miles out. And I've even heard cases where they've gone 3 miles out, not here locally, but 3 miles out. I think Russia is one of the places that they're out now to 3 miles horizontally. So these chemicals are used to keep these microbes at bay, and they didn't need that back then. So they used a lot of high pressure water to fracture the earth down there, and they pumped the gas out that way.
Yeah, it is fracturing. It is hydraulic fracturing, but the chemicals that we're using today is not what they used back then. Aurora was asking in the chat room about is this the type of thing that happens when they were able to turn on their water and start it on fire? The thing about that movie Gas Lamp that they didn't tell you was that area was prone to that anyways before fracking began there.
Yeah, you are correct. Some areas there is people. See, people got to understand too that methane occurs naturally in the ground, and you don't even have to go that deep to run into methane pockets or situations dealing with methane. I mean, you can literally, you can drill 50, 60 feet down and run into methane, and can that methane? Because there's people that do get that methane that occurs in their drinking water. I've been in people's homes where the people's drinking water has kind of like a rotten egg smell to it, and that's from methane being in it. Can you light their water? Probably so.
We got sulfur water here.
Yeah. And sulfur water is another example, but in the same, also on the same level, you have people that they've never had this issue until gas drilling's been in the area, and now they can light their sinks on fire.
I was wanting to make sure that they understood that it isn't associated totally with fracking.
No, it can happen naturally. It can. And the best way to gauge that, and for all your listeners out there, and this is why I tell them, if you're going to have any drilling occur, within 2 miles of where you live, if you're going to have any drilling occurring within 2 miles where you live, I highly, highly recommend that you get an independent water test done on your water. And you want to Schedule 3, a Tier 3 test done on your water, which covers all the chemical makeups that would be found in the ground in that test. And then also you want a radioactive test done. See, the thing is a lot of people, and this is what really gets me going, a lot of people kind of, they worry about the chemicals that end up in their water, but you also got to worry about radioactivity that ends up in your water. Radium-228 and 226 occur deep in the earth. It usually occurs 2,000 feet or deeper. And one of them's got a shelf life of just a few days. The other one's got a shelf life of like 12 years. And with radium-228 and 226, the problem is those things can cause cancer, and that stuff can end up in your drinking water from the drilling process. If any of the drilling fluid, fracking fluid or any of that stuff makes its way into your aquifer system. Again, like I said, if the company has done what they're supposed to do and they've done it correctly, and they've encased and they've drilled down through the water table and they've cased correctly all the way down with the cement and the pipings that's needed, you shouldn't run into a problem, unless you run into a fault line or something like that, or they end up running into, as they go out horizontally, they run into a vertical well, and that has happened.
But can an earthquake, there are more and more studies showing that the injection wells can cause an earthquake. Would that cause contaminated water to flow up?
I would think so, and that's the questions I've asked to various geologists as I spoke to them. I says, when you have earthquakes like this, and they also explained to me it depends on the severity of the earthquake, how deep the earthquake or the point started, how deep in the ground it was. There's many contributing factors to all this. And these are my concerns. When you're drilling in areas where you do have fault lines, I was talking to a gentleman here not too long back, and he works for the industry, and he said, you got to understand something. It's not like we can throw on our X-ray goggles and look into the earth and see exactly where the gas is or the oil, or see what kind of formations are down there. They do seismic work, and it gives them the best guess. So when they go down, see, just because they put a drill pad in and they drill, there's no guarantee that they're going to hit anything when they get down there. So it's the same thing with these fault lines. They got ideas where fault lines are, but they don't know where every fault line is.
So it's just a guess.
That's how I understood it from them. Matter of fact, it was a map that I just was looking, and I think it was is it Noah, I think, posted it. And it's the new map of the seafloor, because the technology's gotten better and they remapped the whole seafloor. And I mean, they found like 10 times the amount of volcanoes that they ever thought was down there. And this is a perfect example. They still don't know what's down under us. They do know one thing, that they have to frack and fracture the rock to get the gas out. It's not like down in Texas and a few of these other places where you can go down, and drill down and hit a pocket full of gas or a pocket full of oil. It's not like that. They got to go and take it foot by foot by foot by foot.
You're talking about all the radiation involved. What happens when they're dumping it into the landfills? Are the liners that were put in place a long time ago able to withstand the possible corrosive?
That's a good question, Mark. I really have no idea. I do know that Ohio has changed some of its laws here in Ohio to accommodate the industry, so they have a place to dump their drill clippings. Ohio accepts drill clippings from Pennsylvania and West Virginia. It's kind of like we got open arms here and saying, bring all your drill clippings here, whether it's radioactive or not. We really don't care. That's what it's almost like here in Ohio. So they run it out to these places. I'm kind of anxious. We've been talking in our group, our Jefferson County group, about taking, because we had Geiger counters, to go out and just try to get some readings. If you can get to the land, if they permit you to even go out into the landfill, it would be nice to go in there and just see if you can get readings. You know what I'm saying?
So how are they just, after they stop at your house, get your weekly garbage, take it back to the landfill, do they go to the frack pads and just load up the trucks with?
You know what, Mark? I really, right now, like we have a landfill that used to receive garbage. They've completely stopped receiving garbage, and now all they do is take on drill clippings. I guess it's more profitable, to take on the drill clippings than it is to take the garbage. But talking to the people who live near the landfill, you couldn't bear the smell from the garbage, and I felt for these people. These people that around the landfill have fought it for years here in Jefferson County.
Right. Okay.
And now it's kind of like part of the battle's won. No more garbage comes in. So as they contain that smell by burying all the garbage, now the question is now you're taking on drill clippings, and that the drill clippings is radioactive. To what point or what extent, I can't say for sure, but the idea is you're taking that out there and you're putting it into the landfill. And just like anything else, for example, I have an above ground pool. So I have a liner. And one of the things that goes inside of the above ground pool, and when I've had my pool now for about 6 years, and it's already started to wear because of chemicals. The pool chemicals that you put in it started to wear, so I had to get a new liner. Mm-hmm. Even though they told me that the liner is good for 25 years. But they prorated my liner. They said, well, you can't really gauge it because, with the chemicals that you use, the chlorines and the other stuff that you put in there to keep the pH and all that stuff balanced, to keep the bacteria and all that stuff down the pool, it eats the liner. And every liner is different. We can say 25 years, but your liner may last a year. And it made me start wondering, well, what's the difference between these liners then that they put in these landfills and they dump the drill clippings on there? How long do those liners actually last?
Do you have any idea what the half-life of this radioactivity is?
Well, that's what I said earlier. One of them is just a few days, and the other one is like 12 years.
Them two particular ones that you're talking about now.
That's what I'm talking about, 228, 226.
I want to make sure.
I apologize. I don't have all my information here with me. Even though I'm at home, I don't have it all here.
Oh no, this is good. I just wanted to make sure that that's the two that you were talking. The main two you were talking about.
Because I have it. I'm trying to see if I can locate one of my packets here. But
the thing that gets me is they made it illegal. That they made it so they didn't have to expose what chemicals that they were using, which makes it seem kind of shady right off the bat, Right. Well, with the chemicals, they don't have to. How do I want to put this? Some states require them to post a general list of the chemicals. Other states, Ohio here, has done everything that they could possibly do to make it easy for the industry to do business here. Literally, our governor here took power from our EPA to regulate certain things and dumped it all in ODNR's lap, which is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources lap. And if you call ODNR with a problem and you tell them it's a problem you have, whether there's a gas smell or you got you're concerned because you got a water issue, they'll do everything in their power to get out there and prove it wasn't the industry. Oh, it wasn't the industry, so you must have had this problem from the beginning. You're just now noticing it. To me, it's just amazing what they've done here. It's astounding.
It really is. No, I agree.
So if anyone gets sick that could be directly linked to fracking, do you think a fine is worth it, or you think people ought to start serving jail time?
Well, I've always been the person who believed. And, what I'd like to see happen, this is what I would like to see happen. This is what I've been trying to tell all the environmental groups, so we all need to get on the same page here. What I would like to see is constitutional amendments made to states' constitutions to hold our politicians criminally liable for junk bills or junk laws that they pass to benefit a private industry. And I compare it like this. As a law enforcement officer, I'm bound to enforce the law, to protect and serve the people. If I fail to do that, I could be charged with dereliction of duty. I could be arrested for it. I can serve jail time for it. I can be fined for it. What does our politicians get for crap that they pass because so much money has been donated to their re-election campaign because they've been lobbied? Some of these, when you talk to them, for example, in the state of Ohio, a few years ago when our governor came to give his State of the State address in Steubenville, Ohio, a few years ago, I think it's been 3 years now that he's done that, we had all of our legislators from all over the state converge on Steubenville, Ohio. So I was out there, and I must have spoke to at least anywhere between 25 and 30 of our state representatives. And I asked them, I said, are you aware of 1509-27 and 1509-28, which is the mandatory pooling laws? Mandatory pooling and unionization, which means that if the gas company comes in and they make lease agreements with all the neighbors, and I choose not to lease, they can take my minerals from me and give it to the collective. And then they'll reimburse me after I pay 200% back to the gas company of all their operational costs. They'll reimburse me and I'll get a royalty check. I said, do you know that this law, all that law ain't on the books? I have law in the books. So when you show them the law that it's on the books, they can't believe it. And a few of them voted for these laws, especially the amendments to these laws. They voted for it. Well, I didn't see that because you folks don't read it. And I think that, you know, that's where I kind of get a little bit frustrated with all the environmental groups throughout the country and like here in the state of Ohio. I think you would be better served if everybody got together and got it on the ballot to vote on to amend your state constitutions to hold elected officials criminally liable for things that they don't read or junk legislation that they pass that can affect the citizen of that state. So in other words, if you vote to relax the laws so the gas companies can come in and do their business, and then 5 years later, 10 years later, you find out that because you relaxed the EPA regulations or you threw everything in ODR's lap and they're looking the other way, and now water's become contaminated or the ground's become contaminated or people are getting sick, then at that time you should be able to go back and have each and every politician who voted for it arrested and charged. And you know what? You won't have these problems.
That's a great point to make on the day before Veterans Day, and I also need to thank you and Thomas for.
Wait a minute, it's the day before Veterans Day?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Okay. So, thanks for using your First Amendment or defending our First Amendment freedoms to provide an excellent show. That's a great point to make. So,
I think that he's been talking some extremely important issues. These things, they have gotten fracking stopped in several places around the United States, and maybe that's the model we need to follow.
Yeah,
I ain't got to worry about it here where I'm at in South Georgia because we have swamps and the methane just seeps up out of the ground and they can't catch it anyways.
Just last week with all the elections, Athens, Ohio, which really isn't a 3-hour drive from Ed and my house, and Denton, Texas, passed laws banning fracking within the city limits. So, Ed, are you finding that maybe the shows that you've done on fracking, the couple guests Thomas and I have had who have made people aware of what's coming to their neighborhoods. Do you think all this stuff is helping to get the word out?
No, I think it is. Anytime you can get information out that that can benefit the people, and what I mean by that is that a lot of people, and I'll use an example myself. I enjoy listening to talk radio. For me, I find it easier to sit back and listen to something and get my information than actually sit in front of a TV or reading a book. I like to listen. So, and a lot of people out there are like that. A lot of people who drive for a living listen to talk radio. They get a lot of their news and information that way. I think that the services you guys provide is a very good service by getting that information out and making people aware of what's going on. The people in Denton and the people of Athens, they got set up. Fox News, and kind of ironically, 2 days after the election, 2 days later, on Fox News, I was watching Fox News. Being a conservative, that's probably my favorite news agency. So I'm watching Fox News, and lo and behold, Fox News is talking about Denton, Texas, and Athens, and a few other places that ban fracking. And without cutting them off, they allowed them to talk for a little bit this time to explain why they did it. And the one guy was showing, he lived in this subdivision, and he was pointing at a pad right next to his house. I mean, literally, they got the high wall there, and the drill site's right there.
Mark's got one he can see from his house.
Yeah, well, and I got one that's getting ready to go in a mile from my place. So you have these concerns, and I'm glad the people got together there in Denton and said, no more, we're done. Now the industry swore that they're going to take this and fight this, even in federal court if they have to, and they'll spend, and all the gas companies have gotten together, and they're going to spend billions of dollars to fight these different cities and tell them it's unfair. You can't do that. So the same question I have is, it's unfair for them to ban drilling. And it's the industry says it's unfair for you to do that, but it's totally fair for you to lobby our politicians to create laws to take land from us so you can drill on. Isn't that just ridiculous?
Well, I find it ridiculous that our county health board has every reason to try to ban smoking in public places and restaurants, but they won't come out and see what's staying on my property, see the trucks going by in my front yard, not by my front yard. They've driven in my front yard.
Literally drove in his front yard. I seen it when it happened. You get the flaring going on, but they won't come out and do anything. That's what the flaring is equal to millions of cigarettes going at the same time. There's our break, folks. Back after these informed us he had to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He is involved in a bunch of stuff tomorrow for the Veterans Day, and I didn't realize he had to get up so early. I'm glad he joined us for the hour that he did join us, Mark. And it was very informative. And
we'll get him back on Sunday or another Monday night.
So I'd like to let everybody know the phone lines are open. The number's 347-688-2902 or amadpainter on Skype. And if you all have any experiences with this fracking stuff, we were kind of interested in hearing about it. The more information out there, the better we are to discern what needs to be done in order to try and stop some of this. I think it's something that I rank it right up there with nuclear power. It's, it's one of the dumb things we do, and it doesn't make no sense to me.
Well, You posted, some of the links in the chat room about this accident near Ed's house. He's talking about, the landfills are accepting all this contaminated materials.
Well, it's on the premise that the half-life isn't that long, but now you're talking a 15-year half-life means for 30 years the stuff is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that maybe it's time we start seriously considering the solar panels, or instead of investing all this money into fracking, the putting the pipelines all across the country? Why don't we just try something new? Invest in new technology.
Now, investing in new technology is a good thing, but now your solar panel idea is a kind of a good thing, but what you do with solar panels is you charge batteries up.
Mm-hmm.
Batteries only have a certain life. And then you're stuck with, thousands upon thousands of dead batteries. So you're really only changing one environmental hazard for another.
Well, there's the all the windmills that are going up along I-70, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I-76. You can see them all across the hilltops there. There's got to be something better than.
Well, we know there's things like cesium that reactors that can be built. That's 99% of the stuff is used, and what isn't used can be recycled and used up. So it's almost 100% usable.
Yeah,
but why don't we have cesium reactors instead of nuclear reactors?
That's one of the questions we need to ask is, why aren't we just trying? Why are we just stuck with the fossil fuels?
Why we're using nuclear reactors instead of the cesium reactors is because the fuel rods are being sold to the nuclear reactor companies, and that is where the money's at.
Okay.
For GE.
Okay.
So it always boils down to where the money goes.
Yeah, just follow the money.
That's it. 4112 we've been joined by. How are you this evening?
Hi. 412. Hi.
Hello, how are you today?
Oh, just fine. I'm enjoying this more than Monday Night Football.
I'd just like to say that I'm a fracker that fracks over in Eastern Ohio for the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is all the people that are against fracking use a lot of false information, like I was just listening to.
Well, give us some real information then, from your point of view. We don't mind listening to you.
Okay, all right. First of all, Ohio has been known for earthquakes, minor earthquakes. Fracking in no way can move tectonic plates. There's no way. There's not enough horsepower on this planet to move tectonic plates.
I'll agree with that now.
And the other thing that I was listening to is the individual you had on and everything he was throwing out a lot of numbers, and his numbers were so far off it was hilarious for me to listen to. Now, I was trying to, I have an iPad, so I can't go on the website and comment in chat room. The amount of chemicals that he was saying that we were using was 4,000 times over than what we actually use, okay? Because as a fracker, I used to put chemicals in the ground. I can tell you it's probably about maybe 200 gallons per frack. Now, there's two different types of fracks. You have half stages and full stages. Your half stages are going to be approximately 800 barrels, or 8,000 barrels. And each barrel is 43.5 gallons of water. So your full fracks are going to be in the area of
19,000 barrels. So we're talking somewhere in the area of 500,000 gallons of water. And the other thing that he's talking about is there's a lot of, like you were saying, there's a lot of areas that have natural occurring seepage into the groundwater with natural gas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, the reason why that happens is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we were just agreeing with you.
Okay, but and a lot of times what you have is these committees in Ohio, which I've had on numerous occasions been driving to. Now, when we go there, this probably all started, I would say, 3 years ago, and they would jump on our tractor trailers and threaten our lives. Okay, we're talking 100 people at a guard shack on the entranceway to it. Now, I'm just a guy trying to, make a living for my family.
Yeah. No, we're not against y'all making a living now. I have nothing against you making a living.
Yeah.
What I've seen and what I've read now, I can't guarantee that it's not, disinformation or not. I can only discern what I see happening. And Mark, right here, my co-host now, he'll sit there and tonight we haven't heard a fracking truck go by his house, but they go up that hill by his house and there'll be 40 of them go by in 6 hours time.
Yeah, I would probably even say more than 40, because when you're hauling water, they haul two different types of water. They haul impaired water than fresh water. The impaired water is from other fracking sites, and what they do is they use that impaired water, which has chemicals and mixture with water and a lubricant called FR, and they reuse that to frack with, so they don't use fresh water. But when the drill goes down, the drill uses there's three different types of drills that show up on the job site. The first one's going to do 200-foot casing, which is a 20-inch pipe that is 3/4 of an inch thick. And what that does is that protects the groundwater, and then they cement around that so that way it doesn't get contaminated. And then the next piece of pipe is going to be a 17 3/4. The next one's going to be a 12 1/2. Next one's going to be a 9 1/4, and then the last one's going to be the production pipe. That's the 5 1/2 or the 4 1/2. And each one of those has, that last piece of pipe has 3 inches of cement around it. So it's not like it's going to crack, fracture, or pollute anything. So once it goes down into the zone, and the zone is always kick plugged, and what that means is you're gonna go down 6,000 feet, and you're gonna make the drill make a 90-degree turn. Now that's when you bring in another drill, and he does your horizontal drilling. I've been to sites where I've seen the drill and watch it on the computer, and it goes to over 19,000 feet.
That's pretty darn deep.
Is that for the Utica
So
shale?
when we frack, the Utica crosses over into a little bit of Pennsylvania, but it's mostly primarily in eastern Ohio, and then in Pennsylvania it's more south. So what we do is we don't use the kind of chemicals that individual was saying. And and a lot of the people that watch over us is DEP. They come over to our job site. He was talking about people that don't have experience. There's what's called an individual called the company man. He's represented it through the Energy Corporation. He normally has over 30 to 40 years experience. And he basically tells everybody what to do. He makes all the decisions. So it's not like you have a bunch of Kmart workers going on into a fraction site with no prior experience. Somebody there with massive amounts of experience, and at his fingertips, he's constantly calling engineers for if there's any problems and everything. And getting back to where they cleared out that one pad for a 2-mile radius, the reason why they do that is they give themselves a buffer of tenfold. So actually, if that were to ignite, it's not going to detonate like TNT. All it's going to do is catch fire.
Yeah, see, that's what I was wondering.
Going to do is
that's what I was wondering when he said it. I mean,
yeah,
is this thing going to blow up or or what?
No, no, it's not going to blow up. All it's going to do is kind of like if you would have your gas. Think about it this way: when you ignite natural gas, it's just going to, and it has pressure on it. It's going to be just like a flamethrower. But if we would have 100% H2S, which is a lot more volatile, that's going to make an explosion. But that's not in large quantities. That's only formed by there's a bacteria in the well that creates H2S, and what that is once you breathe in 4 or 5 breaths of it, you're dead. And it's a small quantity within the well and everything, and it's very volatile. But that's only, we're talking less than 1.100% of the well and everything. But what you see is us frackers, when we're out fracking and we read this information that's in these newspapers, and everything that's in Ohio is 99% BS. The only 1% of it's correct is the location that they mention in it. And it's almost annoying to, all of us went to school. We went to a trade school, and then we go to Texas, and they train us there. And plus, all these companies have individuals that do all their specific training. And they don't have like some kind of super SWAT team that puts out fires that are dispatched from Texas. Every single one of them has at their offices, at their main corporate office in Pennsylvania or Ohio or West Virginia. So when they have an issue, they have people there can respond however long it takes them to drive to that pad and everything. It's not like they have to wait for people to pack their clothes from Texas and go to that site. That's not true at all.
Well, that's a little more reassuring to me, you know what I mean? If they are right there near the site, I think that's something that definitely needs to happen if it isn't happening. But you say it is, So
yeah, and the thing about the left propaganda on fracking is almost sickening, the amount of disinformation it is. It's in the areas between 95 and 99% disinformation. And us frackers work 12-hour shifts, and normally it takes us, an hour and a half to drive there. So we're putting in normally 17 to 18-hour days. So we don't have time to, call to the newspaper and say, listen, that was total BS what you just said. None of it's true. We don't have time to, plus the corporations aren't going to fight it because they have such proprietary information on their techniques, their chemicals, how they do everything. They don't want to, when the disinformation is going out, they don't want to say anything about it because if one corporation says, okay, yes, we do it this way, and then somebody else hears it, they can copy that and they can use that technique. So they're not going to.
Yeah, now we've tried to get somebody. We have tried to get somebody from one of these fracking companies to come on and talk to us, and we can't get any of them to even consider it.
They won't. They're not going to talk to you whatsoever.
Well, we're interested in getting out the truth, Be it is we got people who are complaining, but we've got no one that's willing to stand up like you're doing right now. And I thank you for calling in tonight, because this puts another perspective on it that we all need to look at,
Mm-hmm. And one thing about the fracking community is it's not individuals that are in a awake to the reality of what's happening in the United States. You have basically a large majority of sheeple, so to speak, but really hardworking sheeple. But I listen to you guys when I'm fracking and everything, and I just sometimes I want to call in and everything, but I just couldn't listen to this guy spew out all this disinformation anymore. I had to call in.
Go ahead, Mark. You tried a couple times there.
Well, that's fine. Are you witnessing the flaring that goes on. Do you think do you think it's safe for a neighborhood to be exposed to what becomes airborne?
Without a question about this, there's no problem with that at all. What that is, that's called flaring. When they put the well online, it goes through the Cimarron unit. And what the Cimarron unit is, it separates the water and the sand and the gas. And what you have is you have a massive fluctuation in pressure coming out of that well, because they can't put a well and connect it into a pipe. At one moment it might be 900 psi. The next minute it might be 300 psi. They have to regulate it. So to regulate that pressure downward and stabilize it, they put it through the Cimarron unit. It separates the water, the sand, the gas, and the higher pressures is ignited. So they're burning the gas. So it's basically, the same thing as when you get on a fork truck that has a propane tank on it. You pretty much have the same emissions off of that. And it doesn't burn for a very long time. Once those pressures start to stabilize where they want it at and join it into the main line, that's when they shut off the Cimarron stack, where it no longer blows into the atmosphere and they ignite it. But at no point is the natural gas just spewing out on its own. As soon as there's a diaphragm with a potentiometer that sees that, and it turns on an igniter and it burns it immediately. So if you think that that's some kind of massive pollutant in the air, it's not.
What about the articles that appear in the classified ads in the papers that say there's X amount of tons of this chemical are put in the air over a year?
Oh my gosh, that's totally false. That is so much.
It's in the papers. Well, they put it in the paper.
I don't care if it's in the government document. It's still untrue. That's false information.
If it's untrue, then why does the EPA require them to put it make it public knowledge?
Actually, it's the DEP that makes all our regulations. We're the ones that directly, all fracking companies follow DEP.
Okay.
So
like I said, there's a lot of disinformation on the internet.
The DEP
I just look at it
I'm sorry, I apologize.
The DEP stands for Environmental Protection Agency, right? Is that what
Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure
they're
they
going to
understood what they were talking about.
Yeah. See, what their basically main concern is H2S, which is condensate. And condensate is heavier than air, so it's going to lay in pockets and everything. And they don't want that blowing around, because once you inhale H2S, it's going to nullify your sense of smell, and then about your third breath, it's going to kill you.
So do you think that information like that should become more public knowledge? I mean, you just made it more public, but don't you think that would be considered a little bit more?
Yeah, but the only problem is what you're referring to is each well is going to run the Cimarron unit at different intervals and different pressures, and it's not going to be the same. So that'd be trying to say, this individual right here next door, we're going to use their car to set all our standards on their driving habits, and everyone else's car will be identical to that. So it's going to be erroneous information. It's going to be, they don't have and there's no one actually taking that information and samples at any one of the Cimarron units. The only ones that know that are the individuals called well tenders that read that information off the Cimarron unit.
Are you familiar with the Eisenbarth pad accident over the summer in Monroe County, Ohio? And when they sprayed the water to clear the debris off the pad, it killed about all the wildlife in the stream for about 2 to 5 miles before it entered the Ohio River. Do you think that's?
No, I'm not familiar with that, and I don't know the people, and I don't know the circumstances, so I really can't say, anything about it.
Well,
I'm with you. I'm an outdoors person. I'm a fly fisherman, for 40 years. So, of course, I'm concerned about the streams and the wildlife and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I have the utmost respect for Mother Nature, and I think it should be respected. And what people don't realize is these fracking companies have that same mentality, because there's a bunch of country boys doing this work. It's not, more or less city people, because nobody wants to work. Who do you know that wants to work 18 hours a day, 3 weeks straight? You ain't going to find a lot of city people that want to do that kind of work.
Right. Now, I just want to bring up that point, since we did have a couple guests who did speak about that in July, and they had researchers there right after this happened, and I think people need to be aware of what can happen, and I don't think that.
But keep in mind too, that's a flip situation. You know what I mean? Where you have any type of spraying off. In Ohio, they have a regulation DEP set, and what that regulation is once the pad is prepared and everything, and they have to put a certain thickness of B2 rock, B3 rock, and then when the fracking equipment comes in, they have to have containment, and that containment is 12 millimeter plastic from each corner. Every piece of equipment has to sit on that, and it has a 20-inch corrugated plastic tube, which is the containment is wrapped around. So there is no, even if you would spill 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel, it wouldn't go anywhere. It would be trapped within that plastic. And then what they have is each one of the job sites has a sucker truck with hazmat, and they suck any type of chemical that's spilled. So when it rains or anything else, they suck that rainwater off, so that way it doesn't go over that corrugated tube. So even if how that happened, I have no idea. That could be after the fact, when a well tender came in with a delivery of chemicals when the containment was taken off.
Well, what do they do with that water?
That water is called impaired water, and we refrac with that.
Well, I just want to, you were talking about this spraying off of the pad. I believe from that show in July that was what contaminated the stream. And I just want to bring up the point that I think a lot of the comments in the paper and what I heard from researchers that that was what really happened. They tested some of the fish, and I think that a lot of people who live near these pads, they've seen a number of accidents in Wetzel County. The one I'm talking about, the one Ed mentioned. I think a lot of people have seen what goes on, and maybe they're just starting to have some concerns.
See, when you talk about that Wetzel pad, the first thing you have to keep in mind is you cannot get a fracking permit unless you follow certain guidelines in DEP's regulations. And you have to have a containment on pad to frack. So I don't know where that spraying off was, because like I said, that entire fracking pad, every single piece of equipment is on containment and it's contained. You could spill, like I said, 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel and not one drop would go into any rivers or anything. And then that's all disposed of. So that had to have been a well tender problem or something like that. But keep this in mind, we're humans on this earth and everybody makes mistakes. If you think us frackers don't make mistakes,
Amen, brother.
Did steel workers not make mistakes making steel, and steel molted and melted people? Did not construction jobs collapse and kill people? It's just like fracking too. We're human too, and things happen that they're going to can get away from us that we can't control in milliseconds. And plus, keep in mind, it takes 18 pumps to frack with. At some point, something might happen to one of those 2,500 horsepower motors that are sitting on each one of those pieces of equipment. So, you're talking 26 tractor trailers, pieces of equipment that are running full bore for 4 hours. So, it's not human; it could be mechanical. So, this is the world we live in. Mistakes are going to be happening, but we're not going out there with no information, untrained. Everybody, even when new guys go onto a fracking pad, they are committed to one individual. And that individual is kind of like their mentor. And that mentor tells them what to do, guides them, makes sure that they follow DEP regulations and company policies. They also have what's called a yellow hat. And what he is he's safety. And the entire time, all he does is look over safety issues. Is there something over here that shouldn't be like this? He makes a report, goes to the company man, which is the highest ranking individual, and they correct it. So it's, you're not going to hear this or read this in any paper, but it's a lot more controlled than you can ever imagine. And they have to jump through so many hoops just to get that equipment onto that fracking pad or drilling pad. And drilling pads are the same, by the way. They have to have containment too.
Yeah, but there are still accidents that are happening, and I just wanted to say I have it near my house, and I'm concerned. I can just sit here in my office window, look out and see what's going on, and I don't really appreciate it.
Yeah, where's your house at?
In West Virginia, Northern Panhandle.
Okay. Yeah, I fracked plenty over there, over in Bridgeport area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me make something real clear here for you. We're not after the people who are employed and making a living. This isn't what it's about. It's about
I totally
our
understand that. I totally understand that. It's
so
just
don't think we're trying to jump on you or the companies in general.
Okay.
We're concerned with what is happening in our world, and this is the way we learn how to deal with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate you calling in and talking to us today.
No problem. But what people have to, what they don't know is never going to be told about this is all the cement and steel that encases the well, where you don't have leakage like these phony articles that I read constantly. And when you have, let's say, the back of a F-150, that's the thickness of the well. And then inside of that is a 5.5-inch piece of pipe. And that's where all the chemicals go down to. And I listened to the individual state that people did lose their water sources or their wells. That is true, because when they go in with that 20-inch bore, 200 feet, sometimes what they do is they'll cut into a cavern, and that water will go into that cavern and they'll lose the water table because now it's, instead of being, if they had a 100-foot well, now it's going to be at 180 feet, which their pump isn't at. But things like that happen, and it's not going to pollute their water in any way. There's so many movies out there with so much false information. If you are a fracker and watch this, it's almost like watching cartoons on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I get your point there for sure, and I don't blame you for seeing it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest sources of I don't know if you read rents.com, but his website is the biggest proponent of false information on fracking that there ever was, and so is Politica. I'll give you an example. I was reading rents.com, and they put an article out saying that frackers are causing higher STDs in neighborhoods that they're fracking. And I thought to myself, we get 4 hours.
How could that happen?
Yeah, we get 4 hours a night, okay, to sleep. When we're at a job site, we're there for 3 weeks, and then we leave for a week to go home. We don't have the energy to get up and change the channel on the television, let alone go look for women and spread STDs.
What attracted you to wanting to get involved in the fracking business?
Where can you go and make $100,000 a year?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a job. That's what I was saying. You can't blame them for doing a job that somebody's willing to pay them money for. And it's like me. Somebody's paying me to paint a house. I'm going to go paint it. Yes, some of the materials I use are caustic, are pollutive, but I have no choice. If I want the job, I've got to use some of these materials. Now, I am responsible and dispose of them in a proper way, but I still have to use them.
Mm-hmm. Let me just make one final point on this BS baloney. Fracking causes earthquakes. You have 20 pumps. Each one has a 2,500 horsepower motor. What that pump does is it generates higher PSI. And we frack it between 7,000 PSI and 8,200 PSI, sometimes 9,000. Now, all that is basically a drill. There's no way that you can move tectonic plates with 9,000 PSI. I don't care what anybody says. If fracking caused earthquakes, that means if I was on a fracking pad, wouldn't that make an earthquake? When I'd be there because we're fracking? No, that's not. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. The false information on that is in every outlet that you could possibly read. And I've never been to I've fracked one well that had 8 different wells, and we were there for 6.5 months fracking 24/7, and the earth never shook.
Well, I kind of don't think they're a direct cause of some of these earthquakes that they claim them to be. Now, like you said, they could have hit a pocket and all the water drained down into there, which causes collapse and stuff like that, but I don't.
Yeah, we call that bridging.
I don't believe they actually are causing earthquakes myself. I think there's, like I said, there's other things that possibly could lead to it. And yes, fracking could contribute to these other things, but I don't think they're the direct cause of these earthquakes myself. We've been joined by Keith. Are you there?
Hi, Keith.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for taking my call. I just had a couple questions for your guest, and I'm sorry I didn't catch his first name, sir.
Thank you. Give it.
All right, that's fine. I just feel like there's other technologies that might be better pursued. Henry Ford built his first Model Ts to run on hemp oil, and that could replace so much. Also, some reports say that we're awash with oil, and others say that no, it's fossil fuel and we're running out of it. Those are two quick thoughts. Also, Nikola Tesla invented some incredible technologies which were incredibly efficient. So I think there's other directions we might choose to go. It's just my thought. I'm curious if you have any response to that.
I think we should follow Nikola Tesla coils, but the problem with today's technology is that's the only thing we know. We know shallow well fracking to extract the oil and the gas. As a matter of fact, North America, one state alone, just outproduced Alaska, which is North Dakota just outproduced Alaska's oil production. And on the Utica side, we get massive oil wells there and everything, and the porosity of the rock. That if everybody's needing to heat their house with natural gas, that's what we have to use. We don't have Nikola Tesla.
Most of this natural gas is being sold to China, from my understanding.
Yeah, China and the EU.
So it's not being used here anyways.
But what about hemp oil? What do you think of hemp oil?
Now, if you consider between the natural gas companies and the oil companies, do you know how many people that they employ? And if you're going to throw in this odd technology that, how many people are going to be unemployed overnight?
Yeah, and
you're talking about a world collapse of economy.
Right. And what a lot of individuals in the United States don't realize, fracking is what's driving the United States right now, plain and simple. Because I fracked from New York to Texas. And every single town has fracking industry. If you were to remove fracking, we would shoot to 80% unemployment.
Well, I don't think that's true. Let me just quickly throw this in. I mentioned hemp. It's estimated that that's $1 trillion industry right now with all kinds of benefits and all kinds of jobs. I think
most
we would
of
have
that is going up in smoke, though.
I'm not talking about a recreational use. I'm talking about medical and construction and fibers, textiles, and oil for you could run vehicles on. It's estimated to be $1 trillion industry to the best of the information I've been able to uncover.
Well, I know that if hemp was made, I'm not going to say legal, because I want it decriminalized. There's a big difference. Legal means somebody's going to be manipulating and controlling it.
And taxing it.
And taxing it. And now, for certain things, I see that as a good thing. It would cut our oil consumption by anywhere from 30 to 40% within 5 years, because there's 65,000 products that can be manufactured with hemp that would replace oil.
And create tons of jobs.
Well, not as many jobs as the oil industry it produces, though.
But it'd be so less destructive to the environment.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm a very high supporter. As a matter of fact, I've signed so many petitions at the White House place and started so many, they won't even allow me to do it anymore.
Let me ask your caller, do we even know what chemicals they are using to frack? What the heck are they pumping into the ground? It's not just water. There's a whole bevy of, 60 different chemicals they use? You tell me, sir.
Excuse me? 60 different chemicals?
What different chemicals did they use when fracking? I know it's not just water.
No, first of all, what you're going to do is you're going to run your acid to open up your perfs. And what the perf is they run a gun that's a tube, and it's 26 feet long, and it has these basically bullets, and they're the size of quarters. And it has probably 200 of in this section of perf gun. And at the bottom of the perf gun is a blocking tube. So what they do is they send that down the hole, and they measure how far it goes down. at the very end, they detonate the blocking tube, and what that does is it shuts off that zone. It's like a shutting off your spigot. And then they ignite the perf, makes the holes. They pull the perf gun out, and then we put acid in it, and we put 900 gallons of acid on the hole. And then what that does is that opens up the iron and all the rock that's right next to it, and then we go into perf. Then we go into frac. And the next thing we do is we add FR, and that's a friction reducer, and all that is basically a real slimy plant-based chemical that you could probably eat, and there's no problems. And we send on bacteria with sodium nitrate, and what that does is that kills the H2S bacteria so it doesn't produce condensate. And then the next chemical we send on is anti-scaling, so that way the pipe doesn't rust. And there's your chemical.
Yes, but you haven't named. You've said sodium nitrate, but I'm just curious what
sodium nitrate
type
is what
of
they spray
chemicals?
on the. Sodium nitrate is what they put on the roads when it in the wintertime, so that way it's basically a de-icer.
What other chemicals are they using? You said an acid. You didn't say which acid.
We use friction reducer because when you put sand and water together on steel, it's going to be like putting a piece of sandpaper on the roof of your car. So we put FR onto it, which is a plant-based friction reducer. It's slimy as snot, and we add that to it. We add approximately 200 gallons of FR.
Are you certain this never gets into any groundwater?
I would probably say I'm 99% positive because it's 6,000 feet down, and then wherever the drill is, the drill bit's not going to make a complete 90-degree angle turn, so it's probably going to be in the area of 8,000 feet down. And your water table is approximately, the deepest I've seen is 200 feet, but I'm sure there's deeper than that.
And you don't think information like that is why some communities have gotten concerned, or they're justified in being concerned?
Well, what's happening with the community is they're running with this bogus information and this hysteria, and they're getting all worked up over it. And I can see why they're in a concerned state, because they're being fed and being told such bogus lies, and they're following this bogus lie and thinking it's true when it's not.
Why would they have legislation passed that makes it illegal to divulge what's in the fracking water then?
Because that's proprietary information.
Why is it proprietary?
Well, because the other companies could find out their chemicals as they use and copy that, and it's proprietary information. It's not.
Well, the public.
They're going to tell you. They're going to tell you. They're going to use guar, which is a bean grown in India. They're going to tell you they use the technical name for FR. I forget off the top of my head, and they're going to tell you sulfuric acid.
But your information is, much appreciated, by the listeners. It's more specific than when fracking first started moving into the West Virginia, Western Pennsylvania area, where
What year do you think that they started moving into West Virginia? Just out of curiosity, what do you think? What year would you say that is?
Was like 2008 or so that they entered Wetzel County?
1929.
Okay.
Well, yeah, see, the technology was different then. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the show. And
yeah, what we used back then is what's called shallow well, and what we do with that is it's basically a piece of pipe and digging a hole with pea gravel and water, and that's how they drilled the ground. And it already had they were collecting the gas at the bottom of the tube, and to go to show you how effective that was, I know of wells from 1930s that are still producing gas to this day.
What I was referring to was just say in the last, say, 5-6 years, that there seemed to be a reluctance on the fracking companies and to even say, chemical names like you just mentioned. It was all like never. What we're putting down the hole is the same stuff that you can find under your kitchen cabinet. Well, it seems like
it's
this
probably,
new information.
Actually, to be honest with you, what's in your kitchen cabinet is probably worse than we're putting down hole, because what we use is we use what's called cross-linking, and what cross-linking is that's guar. Guar is a bean that is such proprietary information on it, sickening, that all they do is they take a bean, they cut it in half, and then they add acid to it, so that way it brings out a certain chemical, and it turns into, and we add it with a pH magnifier or intensifier, which gives it a high alkaline consistency, and it turns into a watered version of silly putty. And what that does is that takes the sand and the water down more consistently, and it cleans out all our, it doesn't accumulate in our pumps and in our piping. And that too you could probably eat. I know you could eat guar. You could probably eat it by the handfuls and not have anything happen to you. And keep in mind too, is we're adding a number of, when we do what's called when we first go into the well, we do what's called an injection test. And all that is to see what our rate we can get out of the pipe. 20 barrels a minute, 30 barrels a minute, 50 barrels a minute. And that might run for 6-7 hours. So we might run 750,000 gallons of water on one particular perf. And each well has between, could be anywhere from 21 perfs to 150 perfs.
Mm-hmm. So,
well, we've got about 4 minutes or so or less, by the way, just to let you know.
All right.
Don't get
is that per frac?
Per stage. We don't call it a frac, we call it a stage. Each one of the zones is called a stage. But after all, my point I'm trying to make is when you add all these chemicals together, which are a lot of them you can eat, with 750,000 gallons of water, it's pretty much diluted where once it sits, you could probably drink with the water that's in the bottom of the well.
I'd still be kind of leery.
Well, thanks a lot for letting me talk on your show. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you coming on, and because, like I said, we've tried to get actual people from fracking companies to come and talk to us, and they just plain refuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, because we are interested in actually getting the truth to, and not spread disinformation if we can help it.
Mm-hmm.
And we appreciate the other side of the story too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, well, so thank you for letting me get my story out.
I'm glad you did. I would appreciate if you'd email me at amadpainter@yahoo.com and keep in contact. And I would like to hear more about this. I'm interested in it. I feel as though this is something that the public really does need to know about this. If it isn't as bad as what these other people are saying, we need to know this.